Ethiopia's persistent and pervasive inequality and the concept of Oromo rights. The current system can be described analytically by some observers as a form of ethnic division that can be interpreted through the lens of internal colonialism. Internal colonialism is a theoretical framework that is used to explain how persistent and widespread inequality can be reproduced within a sovereign state, even in the absence of external rule. In such cases, dominance is exercised internally through political control, institutional arrangements, and unequal access to resources and representation. The internal colonialism in this formulation consists of regions or populations that experience structural disadvantage compared to those aligned with the main political center. Within this framework, the concept of Oromo rights has emerged as a contested analytical term, an analogy to white privilege, often defined as the ability of dominant ethnic groups to maintain a higher social status in ways that mask structural inequalities. Oromo privilege can be defined as a set of institutional advantages that temporarily benefit members of a politically dominant ethnic group, especially its elites. See Delgado and Stefanczyk 2001. Harris, 1995. Lund, 2010. The term does not refer to intrinsic characteristics of individuals, but rather to patterns of systemic access, presumed membership, informal protection, and social credibility that can be aligned with power centers. Critics argue that while dominant political organizations, such as the Prosperity Party and Oromo-related networks, are widely perceived to be closely tied to a particular ethnic constituency, structural inequalities can be interpreted as ethnically structured. In such situations, differences in power, wealth, prestige, and perceived social value can be based on ethnic categories. These dynamics are often reinforced not only by formal institutions, but also by narratives, symbolic politics, and everyday practices of governance. The purpose of this analysis is therefore, in part, to examine and address questions of ethnic hierarchy and cultural dominance. Historical experience shows the dangers of institutionalizing such narratives. For example, in Rwanda, colonial racial classifications and constructed historical myths reinforce the distinction between Hutu and Tutsi, contributing to long-term polarization and ultimately violent violence. The broad learning found in comparative scholarship is that politically interpreted narratives of internal group dominance can create divisions that are extremely difficult to reverse later. It is important to emphasize that the modern scientific consensus rejects biological claims of ethnic or racial hierarchy. As Crane, 1994, has argued, there is no reliable genetic evidence to support differences in intelligence between races. Race itself is not a fundamentally consistent biological category, but a socially and politically constructed category. Similarly, Gold, 1996, has emphasized that human diversity cannot be meaningfully organized into hierarchical biological classifications. In the Ethiopian context, the central issue is not the intrinsic characteristics of any race, but the structural dangers of political systems that treat identity as a right rather than equal citizenship. When institutions are widely viewed as a form of charitable giving rather than a matter of merit or civic membership, social trust is diminished and zero-sum competition is intensified. Over time, such perceptions, regardless of how they are interpreted by different groups, can contribute to division rather than integration. Therefore, moving forward sustainably requires institutional reforms that are based on equal citizenship, transparency, and merit-based governance, beyond narratives of ethnic supremacy or victimhood.